Hello and welcome to Pro Trader Strategies Market Commentary for Friday, September the 20th. My name is Eric Wilkinson, and yes, you may recognize me as the Wolfman from mainstream media. But what I'm here to teach you is how to implement strategies. I know anybody can teach you how to build a strategy, and I do that too, but more importantly, I teach you how to take that strategy and then implement it in the right environment at the right time, okay? So it's a little bit different, or actually quite a bit different than what you'll find out there online or elsewhere in different webinars. So check those out at protraderstrategies.com. And without further ado, let's get on with the overall economic data. Not a whole lot for being a Friday. We did get consumer confidence, and it did come in line with expectations at a -7, which is a bit strange because we've got all of this economic data we've been seeing that's pretty good. One thing to note though is Williams was speaking earlier today, but more importantly I saw Rosengreen speaking, and he is the Boston Fed governor. And of course he was on CNBC, so he had to be talking about WeWork. That seems like what everybody is talking about. WeWork is the office share space. And something interesting that I hadn't really thought about is that these WeWork kind of spaces where I, as a small business, can go there and have an office. Well, in an economic downturn, think about it. If the small business needs to cut back on spending, maybe that's going to be the first thing that goes. Well, they have these huge buildings that they are going to have to sustain without any revenues coming in to pay off the mortgage, taxes, and things of that nature. So he is talking about the economic implications of something like that if we were to see an economic downturn. Another thing he was talking about is that it is very outside the realm of what the Fed has normally done, and that's lowering interest rates at a time where the economics don't really facilitate that here in the United States. And that will create, because the economy is doing very well right now, that people will over lever themselves to try and generate more, which could create a bigger bubble. And that is very true. So that's something that I've been talking about as well, that the Fed really should not be lowering interest rates. And then you got all the way over there with Bullard saying that we need another 50 basis point cut. So very interesting to see all of these Fed governors talking now that the FOMC is able to really talk about fiscal policy, and that usually comes right after the FOMC. There's a time frame before that meeting that they aren't really allowed to talk about economic policies. So without that, with any other economic data, let's move on to the overall markets. And we've got crude oil moving a little bit higher today, up about 70 cents, and it is toggled right between that 59 and 58 Fibonacci that we've got here, which is the two different Fibonaccis. One is on the extension and one is just a regular Fibonacci on the 3-year chart. So it's kind of toggling back and forth there. It starts really losing momentum once they start approaching $60 a barrel again, and the supplies keep continuing to build as we've seen recently. So crude oil struggling to stay above $60 a barrel, and then we go over to gold futures. They're moving a little bit higher today by about $3.50, still in that 1500 mark. Remember, we talked about this yesterday with the 1500 area acting as a psychological level that the bulls are going to want to stay above, and that lines up right about there. So that 1500 mark, as you can see, has acted as support recently, at least over the last couple of weeks, and is starting to migrate a little bit higher. Some of that has to do with the Fed is seeing some risks involved in the overnight lending rates. They are actually adding money, quite a bit of money, to kind of stem off that, and that should actually start to make gold futures a little bit more attractive as the dollar starts to weaken a little bit. So it's kind of a flight to safety there that we're going to start seeing. So that 1500 mark should probably hold as long as the Fed is starting to add funds through the repo. All right, we've got bonds moving in negative territory. It's unchanged for the most part, but still in that 160 handle that we've been talking about. Rosengreen really didn't put a dent in that, talking about holding off on any type of interest rate moves for the rest of 2019. And then we've got the VIX coming off a little bit as the equities are trying to push a little bit higher. Right now, Dow Jones Industrial Average up about 50. I guess my all-time highs this week are not coming to fruition. I thought today might be a day where we really started pressing higher, but it is losing momentum as we get closer to this value area high. That's where we start seeing the markets find a little bit of resistance. We start extending too far above or too far below those value areas, and the market really starts to temper a little bit. So not happening this week, obviously. And then next week, remember, I'm going to be on vacation, so I'm not going to be talking about daily market commentaries, all right? We also have E-mini S&Ps up by about 4 points on the day. Again, pretty close to unchanged, and likely not to see those all-time highs during today's day session, as we're starting to see volumes really start to slough off. It is an inside day, as you can see. Today's trading range with the value areas are well inside of yesterday's move. Late in the day, we really started seeing some weakness come into the market as we just rolled over. I don't think it's really a product of trying to flush out the overnight inventory being long. You can see it kind of got a little bit long there, and I don't believe that was necessarily the case. But today we're seeing very much of an inside day. And outside of that, I haven't done anything, and I don't plan to do anything with my the rest of my portfolio. If you guys remember, I have on that the long straddle in SPY, looking for a bigger move to happen, an outpaced move, which I thought was going to happen with the push higher. Yesterday, you can see we got an SPY all-time high with the 302.63 trading there. But with that being said, that's not going to be something everybody really looks at necessarily. But this, I'm going to leave that trade on. I also have on my Tesla where I'm long those puts. Along the 225 puts in Tesla, I'm going to leave those on as well. Starting to get a little bit of a move down. I expect it to go down and test this value area low here, and or at least come back down to the point of control and maybe overextend just a little bit. You can see I have my cursor right there at around 225, and that lines up with that volume node, so I could easily see that happen. Another thing we could see, and I don't want to, is that this little area in and around these two high nodes starts getting filled in, which is what a lot of times will happen. And we're trading right around this, so it would kind of fill in this and then eventually fill in that area. So Tesla right now, not a really falling out of bed like I expected. We kind of thought that this confirmation, or at least I thought this confirmation, would start sending this down to that point of control rather quickly, but it's taken a little bit longer than expected there. And then finally, TWLO, I have on the long straddle, or sorry, the long, what do I have on there? I have on the long iron condor. So that I expect to have a bigger move. We got a nice big move here. It's in positive territory for my strategy, but not really quite as good as I want it to be. I want it to really start to fall out of bed, to be quite honest, and test those 105 handle there. I've got on the 110 puts. I'm long and then short the 105s. So looking for it to kind of peel back down there, and then I'll be able to get out of that strategy for at least 50% of my max profit there. All right, so everything else is on hold. As I said, I'm not going to add any real strategies that I can't keep an eye on. All of these strategies are defined risks, so I'm not too worried about leaving those on for a longer duration. And that's about all I got for you guys. I hope you have a great weekend and a great trading week next week. And I'll be back again in October. All right, so if you can't take that, take it easy.